Okay.
So I am going to say hello and welcome to today's Talk About Music with our very esteemed guest, Stephen Beaudoin. And I always like to set the stage a little bit so people know what we're talking about and who we're talking to. So I first met Stephen. This I think is poetic, like we've come full circle because we first met at a Tuesday recital at King's Chapel. And this was back in the day. The Athenaeum was under renovations. And so they were living out in the dry docks of Southie, and they would once a month have their monthly noon recital at King's Chapel. And they would always ask students of New England Conservatorium to come and do something. And this was actually right around this time of year because it must have been the first Tuesday of December. And Stephen had put together a little quartet of singers doing Christmas carols. And then he went on to sing in our choir for a little while, and now he's gone on to greater glory. So every time we do this, I try to reconstruct in my mind, how long ago was it? So Stephen, how long was it that you left Boston?
So I left Boston in 2006, but the precipitating incident of our initial connection was now 21 years ago.
Wow. See, we're old, man. It's right.
Indeed, we are.
So you were actually here for a good long while because that's the thing about time, right? And I think that's worth remembering in this time that seems kind of endless and out of time. That when you look back at it, right? So you were here for 6 years, and it seems like that went by in a wink back then, so time is such a funny construct. Anyway, our topic for today is pivot, because you strike me as a person who has pivoted many, many times in your sort of personal professional life and figuring out, because so many singers, like you were a voice major in undergrad, and then you graduated from school, and then you thought, now what? And so from my perspective, for a little while, I thought maybe you were going to be a great writer, and you still are a great writer, but that seemed to be your focus for a little while. And then you got into all of this arts administration business, or nonprofit administration, I should say, rightfully. So walk us through it. What happened? How did you pivot?
Oh boy, well, it's so much has happened in the world in the last 20 years. So I I grew up in a family, Heinrich, that always was interested in making the biggest possible positive difference for and with other people. I think back on my childhood, and I have so many memories of my dad bringing us along to service projects, and very involved in the church. My dad's a retired Catholic deacon, and we had a beat up old upright piano in our little tiny townhome, and we would all gather around and sing from the Reader's Digest songbook. But the I know you remember that yes, old tunes. So this idea of not only music and creative expression, but also service and making the biggest possible positive difference in the world. Those are two themes that have always been present in my life. And so I think, to the question of pivot, I think those have just expressed themselves in many different ways. When I left Boston in 2006, I moved to Portland, Oregon, and I really did that in part to take a moment to figure myself out, and to figure out what really mattered to me in the world. There was a precipitating incident that really started to foment an important moment in my life, which was this. So this was the Haiti disaster in January of 2010. And I remember watching the scenes on the television and asking myself, how can I step forward to bring people together to make a positive difference? And so I had been singing as a backup singer for this band Pink Martini, based in Portland, Oregon. And Thomas Lauderdale, who's the band leader, became a friend of mine. And so Thomas and I produced this benefit concert to raise money for Haiti disaster relief. And I remember standing in the wings backstage, and there was a group that came on that I'd never heard of, called FAME, P-H-A-M-E. It was musicians with intellectual disabilities. And I just was so struck by the quality of what they were doing. And I said, that's a mission that I want to be part of. And I didn't know at the time that they were going through kind of a crisis, and I ended up serving as their executive director for 7 years and leading that organization through some big transformation and change. And so, so I think, that's a long answer. The short question is like a pivot. Part of it is just how do we show up, and then how are we listening to sort of what the universe is telling us we should be paying attention to.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, it's a, overall, it's a question that many of us face in a career in the arts, right? It rarely works out quite the way you thought it was going to when you first start out. And it's a big part of the journey is figuring out, well, how am I going to put that together? Lots of people end up doing a cobbling kind of thing where they do some freelancing, do some teaching, maybe get a day job, all these things that sort of are, that they don't necessarily tell you about in music school, or I think they are getting better at starting to talk about those things in music school.
Well, and one of those, to your point, one of the things that really opened my mind to the possibilities in the world was at NEC, even in the 90s, they were thinking very expansively about what making a life that had meaning in music looked like. And my first internship was actually with the Boston Gay Men's Chorus with Steve Smith, who is now a dear friend and still a mentor of mine 21 years later. And that, having access to opportunities, internships, and then of course working with terrific musicians like you, Heinrich, and many other folks in the Boston community. It also, I think I realized along the way that it wasn't about having to choose. I'm still a musician. I still perform. I consider myself a musician first, last, and always. I'm just a musician that happens to raise money and manage the finances and do all these other parts of the puzzle. But there's there's never any one right answer. It's just what are the right answers, the right expressions for one as an individual.
Mhm. So is your internship with the Gay Men's Chorus, was that just the nitty gritty of arts administration? Was that where you kind of first got the bug, would you say?
A little bit, yes, but the nitty gritty, including the coffee fetching, and
And the labeling of envelopes.
and there were many labeling of envelopes. There was and page turning for a recording session, all manner of things. But it's any student who's paying attention knows that learning is learning is an active endeavor, and you have to be interested. Someone can open a door for you, but and anyone can, you could say, oh, someone opened the door for me and I walked through, but like, well, what are you doing when you're in an internship or in a position? What are you doing to really activate and engage in your own learning? So Steve Smith was a terrific mentor for me in that space.
Yeah. And so then after 7 years in Portland, you pivoted again back to the East Coast. And
Yes.
What happened then?
What happened then? So I actually ended up having 11 years in Oregon. So I was in Oregon from 2006 to 2017. When I got involved in FAME, I started becoming very active and passionate about disability justice and disability advocacy, and started hearing so many stories about the ways that public education was perhaps not not optimally serving the needs of students with disabilities. And so I got active in that space. I actually ended up running for the county school board in Oregon, won election to that county school board, and then served a term as school board chair. So had the opportunity to make a positive difference in the lives of tens of thousands of kids and families in that work. And I was at a conference in Texas, met a guy, as the story goes, met a guy, fell in love. He lived in Texas at the time, and I was in Oregon. So for several years, we went back and forth from Texas to Oregon. Then he got his dream job at the Pentagon in 2016. And I said, I love Oregon, but I love you just as much, if not more, than where I live today. So I'm willing to follow you there. And so here I am.
So you leapt. But
I
it
left.
sounds like you were veering into politics. So maybe you were getting a little bit of that Potomac fever already from your work in Oregon.
Whether people, school board service is honorable service, and school board members, school board members really are in it to make a difference in the lives of kids, but and certainly the skills that you learn in that space are applicable to all parts of life.
And that brings us to Washington, and now the Washington Chorus.
Yes, so now I had just made my first trip to Amsterdam in the summer of 2018, and when I was there, they had a music festival on the canals, and they built stages on the canals, and it was a week. It was unbelievable. It was a week-long festival, free, all outdoors, and they had chamber groups and choirs and orchestras. And I remember especially, and I had not been especially active as a singer for several years. And I remember especially hearing the choirs performing outside and just thinking, oh, I miss that part of my life so much. So I hurried back to DC after that vacation and started asking my colleagues, who's the best chorus in DC that with whom I should be singing? They said, well, there's only one chorus that has 2 Grammy Awards, and that is one of the preferred artistic partners of the Kennedy Center, and that is the Washington Chorus. And so I actually started singing with TWC, and again, it's sort of a kismet moment. I showed up at the first rehearsal and sat next to another friendly tenor, and we started chatting, and he said, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm running an orchestra. I was the executive director of the Maryland Symphony at the time. He said, oh, well, we're actually looking for a new executive director for the chorus. And then a few months later, here I was.
See, everywhere you go, there's some sort of vacuum that you just need to step in and fill.
I don't know, they picked my name out of a hat or something. So,
Stephen, is there a choral director in the DC area named Bill Gray?
Bill Gray.
He was there several years. I went to school with him at NEC. He was a voice major, but he ended up conducting choruses, and I think he was in the DC area last time I knew, but I wasn't sure.
The name sounds a little familiar. The one of the things about DC, similar to Boston, there are so many choirs. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't, 40, 50 plus choral groups in town.
He would be 60-ish probably by now.
Okay. All right. I will keep my ear to the ground for him. Bill Gray.
Bill Gray. Yeah.
So you arrived at the Washington Chorus, and speaking of transitions and vacuums, then you pretty much right away started searching for the next artistic director, correct?
Yes, we had, I came in and was very excited to work with Christopher Bell, who is Northern Irish, personality that can't be beat, and a terrific conductor, of course, and a real technician, such a sensitivity to text. I mean, just a terrific person, a great conductor. I loved working with Christopher, but things had changed in his family life, and he wanted to be spending more time with his mother. And so he announced his leaving, and we had a chance to do an international search, and worked on that with our now board chair, Kara Morrissey. And we had an unbelievable slate of candidates. I got to hit the road and actually visit Boston and Philadelphia and New York and some other places to meet with prospective candidates and to see them in action. And when the dust settled, it was so clear that there was a unanimous choice, and that was Eugene Rogers. Eugene Rogers, who's the director of choral activities at University of Michigan, which is really one of the top choral programs in the country, and the founder of the Exigence Vocal Ensemble, which is a Black and Latinx vocal ensemble that's affiliated with the Sphinx organization. And Eugene is a visionary. He is what a wonderful person, and such a strong contemporary point of view about not only music itself, but music's role in a evolving world. And so Eugene was our choice, and then we started planning his season in February, and then
you had to pivot.
And then we had to pivot.
Are you still singing with this chorus here as well?
So when I could, yes, when I could.
And what is the basis? Is this a community-sponsored chorus, or is it all professional, or what's the group?
Yes, so we're a symphonic chorus. We have about 170 members, and it's a primarily high-level volunteer, very competitive volunteer audition process.
Sort of like Tanglewood Chorus?
Yes, exactly. We do have some paid ringers in the midst. And so, yeah, so then in February, March happened, had to pivot again. And
So
Eugene,
you
say
had
it
to
again?
launch and introduce Eugene to everybody in the virtual world.
In the virtual world. So a lot of online events, a lot of creative content. And we also decided early on that we wanted to continue creating, and not every music organization is taking that approach. Some music organizations are, there's nothing wrong with sharing archival footage, archival concerts. Those things are terrific and can be lovely and nostalgic. But our point of view was we want to create, we want to commission new works. We want to really see how much we can move forward in terms of embracing, instead of avoiding and saying, well, this is just temporary and just wait for us to come back in person. Let's embrace the moment and really think creatively. So we commissioned Damian Jeter, based out of Oregon, to write a new work. We were the first American chorus to commission a new work specifically for virtual chorus. We had about 120 of our members all learn the work and record it from home. And then an audio company do all the editing and post-production and mixing and mastering. And we commissioned a filmmaker, Bob Berg, who's an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker, to create a new film, which is a COVID story. He filmed it in DC and in Michigan. And then we premiered that online a few weeks ago. It's called Cantata for a More Hopeful Tomorrow. We've had over 1,000 folks now watch that. And then in January, it'll be available on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify around the world.
Amazing. And you're
Ain't
doing
no flies on you. Ain't no flies on you. So are you responsible? Are you the CEO, or are you responsible for raising the funding for all this? Do you have a donor base or a corporate sponsor or anything like that? Or?
Yeah, so I am the executive director. I'm the chief executive, and my role is fundraising, financial management, board management, leading, coaching our terrific team. We have a staff of about 6 folks, so a pretty small size staff. Our budget in a non-pandemic year is about $2.5 million. And we usually produce concerts at the Kennedy Center and the Music Center at Strathmore. So we have a wonderful base of supporters, thousands of folks, and now folks around the world. One of Eugene's innovations was opening our membership up to singers around the world. So we have now global virtual members, including singers from Toronto, Kentucky, Michigan, California, Singapore, London, that now join us for our concerts and rehearsals.
That does sound rather groundbreaking. I don't know of any other courses that have membership international like that. Is it working out pretty well?
Yeah, I think the singers that show up are there because for any number of reasons. There are some that are Eugene super fans. There are some that love the repertoire that we're doing right now. There are some who sadly at this time their home chorus is just not active at all. And that's the case for many communities, right? That there's, especially for smaller community choirs, it is not inexpensive to produce virtual programs, and especially to do it of a level of quality that you want your audience to be hearing from you. It's not inexpensive, and so for many singers, they're just searching for an outlet. We've actually partnered also with Berkshire Choral International to do a series of virtual open sings. And we've had, I think, 400 or 500 at each one of those. And so again, singers from around the world, but mostly in the US, some of them affiliated with Berkshire Choral, some with TWC, and some other just folks that are curious to come sing, Messiah choruses or Duraflame Requiem or other works online.
So you've been working with Greg then on that?
We're working a little bit with Greg, the amazing Greg, who is also ageless.
Yeah.
So how is your day-to-day, because I know you also started an MBA kind of program this fall, right? So how has your day-to-day work life changed? I saw you gave up your office space, so your staff of 6 is now all working from home, and there is no more office. Is that true?
There is no more office except for this tiny, I'm in a little space I actually live in Arlington, just over the road, over the river from Georgetown. So I have a tiny little office space that I rent here in Arlington, just because 2 men and a dog is a lot for both of us working from home. So so Joe and Tessa's our Sheltie, are happy to give me some space out of the office. But this is, everyone else is working remotely. The day-to-day is full right now, but I would just say, Heinrich, given everything that has been happening and continues to happen in the world, I would rather be very busy than have a lot of time to think and ponder and wonder about what may happen next. So between the MBA, I'm doing an MBA at the University of Virginia, Darden School of Business. It's an executive program, so it's for, kind of mid-career folks that are working professionals. So between the MBA and TWC, it's great, but it is some amount of work every day of the week right now.
It sounds like you're maintaining a pretty regular office schedule, that you go in there and hunker down, get work done.
Yes, to some extent, and it also means that, and I try to guard against this, especially with my team, because it can be very easy, to roll out of bed at 7 a.m. and you're working. Especially with phones, it's like all of my email and much of what I can do is already on my phone. So one of the things that we've actually been doing as a team, because none of my team members are taking vacations. I'm not taking. Where would we go? No one's taking vacations. So what we decided instead is just to build out more office closures, more paid office closures. And so instead, for example, we would usually be closed Christmas to New Year's. I said, let's just add another week and a half, because none of us are going anywhere, but we all need the time. And if we're not, so the best thing that we found is, let's just close the office for more paid time off together, because, especially to do all the kind of programs that we're doing, it's a huge lift. It's none of this was even anywhere in our imagination 9 months ago. And we've had to learn new systems, processes, technology, bring in new people, new contractors and vendors. So it's a big lift. So we have to make sure we're trying to take care of people as best we can.
And try to stay sane in all of that.
Have you guys been asked to sing for the inauguration?
What an interesting question that is.
It's only half.
What an interesting question. I will say, for the record, we have sung for many presidents and first ladies and vice presidents. We sang twice at the Obama White House Christmas parties in 2013 and 14. I will just say that we have made our availability and interest known for a virtual performance. Certainly is not quite safe yet, even in outdoor, to have 50, let alone 100 folks crammed together somewhere. But we have made our interest known, and I'm sure there's no shortage of musicians that would love to be part of this historic moment.
Because we made the inauguration itself may be virtual.
Well,
Who knows?
In some people's minds, the election was virtual.
There's truth to that also.
Yeah.
This whole discussion makes me wonder, because you guys are doing so well with all of this stuff, and as you were saying about international members, and do you have any thoughts so far on when you go back, are you going to go back to being the same thing that you were? Or to what extent do you envision all of these virtual things being a part of the equation if the world ever returns to any kind of normal?
Gosh, that is such a hard question. I mean, we've had to adjust so many things, including expectations and understandings around change, around testing and trying things out. So, in our industry, as you know, we usually have this idea that it takes months or years for projects to happen. We can't commission something. Commissioning, people need years advance notice. And I to book this artist, we need 9 months. They need to know a year and a half in advance and go through it. It's like, all of that is also changing, because I think, I mean, certainly at this moment, for better or worse, people are more accessible than ever. So we have found that creators, whether they're composers or filmmakers or singers themselves, are apt to do things. And so some of our understandings around sort of, I think, I don't want to say it was fabricated, but I think there was this patina of, classical music moves slowly. We have to, give people the time. It's like, we can move, in entrepreneurship, they teach you to move fast and break things. So we can move fast and break things in our industry, and have a much shorter lens, because with the vaccine, we don't know what or when a return to normalcy will look like, not only for musicians but for audiences. And most of the research that's out there says audiences at this time, the most recent research says audiences, it's not until I think 2022 that over 90% of audience members surveyed say that they're going to be comfortable to be back in a concert hall setting, in a traditional concert hall setting. And again, that will change based on how quickly people are getting vaccine, the efficacy of the vaccine, and all those other things. But I mean, to answer your question, who knows? We don't know. There needs to be, as we develop an audience outside of a physical place, we should have been doing this 20 years ago, right? So our industry should have been doing this, when iTunes was at the beginning, when YouTube was just getting started. So it's just that our industry happens to be very late to this, and is still trying to figure out some of the business questions, how to monetize, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's no question that having a presence online has to be part of our future. And at the same time, as a musician, as a creative person, there is nothing that compares to an in-person arts experience, an in-person musical thing, when we are in the same room having this moment together. There's nothing that replaces that, but there can be things that add to, expand to that experience.
So once again, not surprisingly, you find yourself on the cutting edge of something and having to balance between short-term and long-range plans, because you don't know how long those periods are going to be. So that gets your creative juices flowing. So go for it.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ray. I mean, I love it when there's a lot of uncertainty. That's exciting for me. It's like I've never, something I've learned about myself is that if no one, I have never enjoyed myself if I have ever been hired to simply be a steward. It just becomes very boring to me very quickly, frankly. So I love it. It's very exciting when there's a lot at stake. There's a lot of unpredictability, a lot of uncertainty. What a great chance, because then we get to create, and we get to find a way forward. We just launched today, another example, we just launched a program called Carols on Demand. So we're taking the Cameo business model, which is celebrities that create these custom personalized messages for folks that buy them, and then scaling it for our audience and a global audience, which is that people can buy now from the Washington Chorus a personalized custom carol performance from one of our choristers, sent to you or a loved one as a holiday gift. And so, what is the demand? Say again?
Hire an angel.
Yeah, I love that. Hire an angel. Yes, that's right. Halo optional, but it's we just have to test and experiment, and it helps to have, I have to say, it helps to have a team that has that same orientation of an entrepreneurial mindset, folks that are embrace risk as opportunity. So
yeah, we got much choice now.
That's right, Carol. Yeah.
You really are the change that you want to see in the world, as the saying goes.
How much longer on your MBA?
So I just started in August, so I have a year and 7 months left.
Strict all online, or is there?
That's an interesting question. It has been mostly, but not entirely, online. Actually, I'll be in Charlottesville in a week and a half for some limited, highly controlled, distanced, in-person learning.
Where's
Uh,
Charlottesville? I don't know, Charles.
Charlottesville, Virginia, which is where the university is based.
Oh, it is. Okay. I didn't-
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, you're doing wonderful things. Any other questions for Stephen? Because we are already at time and we can't keep him too much longer because he has a busy schedule, homework to do, and
It's great to see you.
executive
Steve.
to
It's
execute.
great to see you.
Oh, Ray, it's great to see you. I have so many happy memories of singing next to you.
We
Of singing.
had a great time.
We had a great time.
I'm really happy though to see that you're being so successful and that you're focusing. You have many energies, many talents, and I'm glad that you're letting other people benefit from them so
Oh,
much.
that's very kind. I have so many happy memories at King's, including it was the Britain setting, Gerard Manley Hopkins
Oh,
poems,
Yeah.
yes.
AMDG.
AMDG.
Oh yeah, let's do it again.
Absolutely, and I hope to, whenever the time is right, and whenever I have a chance to visit Boston, I'd just love to see everyone.
Bring the crew back together again.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and a very happy Thanksgiving to all. Thank you for coming to talk about music.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.